Hello and welcome everyone to Ivy's Custom Figgies. I am Ivy and today I will be showing you guys how I make my custom wrist tape on my wrestling figures. So the number one question I get asked on my Instagram account when I post my figures is, how do I make the wrist tape on them? They look very lifelike, very real. Well, I will show you guys today how I do that. First off, the materials you will need to do this is, of course, the figures that you will be working on. I've got a few here that I will show you. You will need a little bit of super glue, the one with the brush, a brush on super glue preferred. You will need a regular pair of scissors. You will need a hobby knife, an X-Acto knife, and you will need your wrist tape. This is the key to how I make it. I use actual athletic wrist tape found at any sporting goods store. These particular ones I get at Walmart in the sporting goods section. I believe the brand is Ace right there that you can see. They come in white and black that I've seen so far. I'm sure you can probably buy them in other colors online. But they're real cheap. The rolls are pretty big. And I believe they're only about $2-3 at Walmart. One roll will definitely take you a long way. You'll get a lot of use out of it. So that's what we will be using today. And that's how I make them look real and lifelike, because I use actual athletic tape, what they use in real life. So let's begin. What I do is I take a strip of this. I don't really measure it or anything. You just kind of eyeball it. Take about that much or so is fine. Enough so you could loop it around the wrist a few times. I am going to cut that like so. And then I am going to place it down onto my cutting mat. Make sure you're using a surface where you can use your knife to cut on it so you don't damage it. So I've got a cutting mat here that you can get at any hobby shop or online like Amazon and stuff. You definitely don't want to do it on your bare desk or countertop or wherever you're doing your hobbying, because you don't want to ruin it. So make sure you're doing this on a surface where you don't mind if you're gonna cut into it, because you're definitely gonna be cutting on the surface itself. So we're gonna do the same with the black wrist tape. If I could find where, here it is. Again, not really measuring how much I need, just kind of eyeballing it. You want to have enough for a few loops around the wrist. And place it like so. So you're going to go ahead and take your knife and you're going to determine the thickness of how thick you want your wrist tape to be. So I'm not going to make it too thick, but you're basically just going to take the knife and you're going to cut a straight line all the way across. It is a lot better to do it this way than with scissors, because you're going to need to hold this giant piece, and sometimes with the scissors you might not get as straight of a cut or the thickness you want. Or this is just easy because you peel it right off and you've got a perfect strip. So now what you're going to do is you are going to take your figure. You're going to take it on the wrist. Even though this figure has already painted on wrist tape, I prefer putting on my version of it because it does make it more lifelike. So you're just going to keep wrapping it around. I do a few loops initially around where the hand inserts into the arm to kind of cover up that little gap in there, and it also prevents the hand from being loose. Sometimes because these new interchangeable hands from Mattel, you know, it is a big convenience. It is very cool that you can do that and have different hands, but sometimes they're a little bit loose because you're able to pop them in and out so easily. So I like to wrap it a couple of times over that because it'll help secure the hand in place a little better. And then I just snip the edge because I don't need that whole amount. And then there you have it. I go around and I kind of press very, very hard to smush it together so that it also kind of compresses it down and it's not like bulging out. It's not too fluffy or anything. And there you go. That is your authentic wrist tape. Look at the difference on there between the painted on and the actual wrist tape you're putting on. You get that nice texture in there from the, you know, texture of the tape, how they braided in there. So it looks a lot better. Now, where the super glue comes into play, this is something that I originally was not doing, but then started to do, and I will show you why I do that. I take the super glue, and with the brush, I actually cover the entire tape that I just put on in a light layer of super glue over it. I just go over the whole thing. The reason why I do that is because since this is a textured tape, it is, you know, it feels kind of cloth-like. They've got, you know, little texture fibers, you know, whatever that material is, I don't know, that creates this specific tape. The glue will kind of seep into it. It will, the tape will absorb it, and it'll prevent it from, one, unpeeling on its own. That's not a very common issue, but sometimes, you know, the adhesive will start wearing off and it'll unravel. So the glue will prevent that. Two, it'll prevent discoloration, so it'll stay white over time. And yeah, overall, you just get more use out of it. And three, you won't get any fraying on the edges of the tape either. So I've got an example here that I will show you. As you can see, this one was my first attempt when I started this method. And this was actually probably a year, maybe year and a half ago. I don't know, but definitely over a year ago. So you could see how over the test of time, it started unraveling. You've got the edges are fraying. You've got a little yellowing, a little browning to it. You know, it's just, it's exposed, you know, to the natural, you know, whatever you want to call it. And it picks up on all that. So you'll get the discoloring in there. You'll get the fraying, especially if you're using figures for, you know, like a fig fed or for figure photography and you're handling it a lot. You know, our hands, our skin produces natural oils. So of course, you know, if you're handling it and touching it over time, it'll pick up all that because it's white. So yeah, it doesn't hold up if you do not put that layer of super glue over it. So this is what your finished product will look like. You know, in a few months' time, in a year's time, in a couple years' time, it will start kind of degrading. I do have a couple of finished pieces with glue on there to show you how it looks like. So here's the difference. Here is a Kenny Omega that I did, and this is about a few months old, maybe actually closer to a year that I've made this figure. And look at that. I put the glue over it, and it looks the same as the figure I just did right now. You see how that holds up? No fraying, no discoloration. That's why I put the glue on it. This method can also be used to make casts. If you look at this, a Jericho that I did when he had his cast on, and then they did the Stadium Stampede 2 against the Pinnacle. I used the same exact method that I just showed you, except the only difference is Instead of stopping at the wrist, I just kept wrapping and wrapping and wrapping all the way up. And same thing when I was done, I secured it with the super glue. And look, this is also at least 6 to 8 months old since I made this figure from the time of filming this video. And yeah, it looks like as if I just did it today. No discoloration, no fraying. And because of the texture of the tape, again, it does give it an illusion, like as if it looks like a cast. Once you finish this and the glue dries, you can actually paint it as well too. Because some people have painted wrist tape that they use different colors. It's not always white and black. And if you're not able to find online this kind of wrist tape in other colors, you can paint it yourself. So here is a Matt Jackson that I did from the Young Bucks in his Street Fighter gear. And I used the white wrist tape and then I painted it red once it dried. So that's how I do it. That is probably one of my top questions that I get, one of my top compliments on my figures is the wrist tape. And that's my secret. I use the real thing. I use what the athletes use, actual wrist tape. And I just cut it into tiny pieces and I keep wrapping it around until I'm happy with the amount that I've got covered on the figure. Add a little glue, let it dry, and you are done. I'm going to show you what I do with the black wrist tape because that one I do a little differently. I do not put as much glue, and I will tell you why once I wrap this. So again, I cut my little thin strip. Much easier to do it this way than to cut it with scissors because you get, you know, a little bit better, more even of a cut. And it's just flat on the surface. You don't need to hold it or anything. So on this figure, I am going to do the black wrist tape. So same thing, I'm just gonna start it, and in the initial loops right here, I'm going to do about 2 or 3 over the little gap where the peg of the hand meets the arm to kind of fill it and to kind of keep it from moving in place and rattling, because sometimes these interchangeable hands do become, you know, a little loose and that can be annoying. And then I will just keep wrapping and wrapping until I am satisfied with it. Actually, I made it a little too bulky towards the end, so I'm gonna adjust where I wrap it. And that's the nice thing about this tape too, is that it is very flexible. So you can, you know, wrap it however you like and it will stay to that shape. And then I'm just going to press it down, like I said, to make sure that it sticks to each other. And there you go. Now you've got black wrist tape on there. So the difference that I was seeing between the white and the black, because this wrist tape is a darker color, you don't need to worry about it discoloring over time. This one, for some reason, unlike the white, even though it's the same material, it does not want to really unravel or fray over time. It more or less stays exactly the same. The only thing that I do with the black is I do take a little bit of super glue and I apply it to where my final strip was. Basically the last piece that attached to the rest of the tape, to the rest of the wrist. And I put a little dab on there to, you know, hold it in place to stop that part from unraveling. And that way it won't go anywhere. So rather than putting glue over the whole wrist, like I said, because it's a different color, because it's a darker color, you don't need to worry about discoloration. You could still, by all means, put super glue over the whole thing if you'd like. But for the black, it's not necessary. I just do a little dab at the end where the final piece stopped to, you know, stop that from over time wanting to undo itself. And otherwise, there you go. Less work with the black wrist tape. And once that dries, you know, it won't, you know, be as shiny like that. It'll definitely blend in. And it looks authentic once again. I do have an example here on a Chelsea green when she broke her hand, her arm, I should say, and she had a cast. I used the same method, just like I did on this one, just like I did on the Jericho. I just kept wrapping it higher up the arm rather than stopping at the wrist. And I added some on the hand. I just looped it all the way around in between. Now on this one, I did put super glue over the entire arm, everywhere where I taped it up, only because by doing that, it gives it that hardened cast look and feel to it. So by doing that, it makes it more real and it makes it look more like a cast rather than just wrist taping the entire arm. So that is the difference right there. Which in my opinion, I think it turned out pretty good, and it does look like a broken arm. It does look like a cast. So there you have it, folks. That is my secret to my wrist tape method. It's very easy. Does not cost a lot to do to upgrade your figures. And this already had dried, so now, like you can see, it's dry to the touch. And there you go, and you still get mobility in your hands right there. It's just not gonna be loose like in some cases. Sometimes they could be kind of loose, and you could still pull these in and out to swap them out. The tape does not block you from doing that. I hope you enjoyed this video, guys. You can follow me on my Instagram. It'll be in the description. It's Ivies_custom_figgies. That's where I post all of my work. I do commission figures. If you, you know, have something in mind and you would like something commissioned, please reach out to me on Instagram and we can discuss it. If there's other tutorials, other tips and tricks you'd like to see, post it in the comments and I will do my best to, you know, record some other things that I do that I could show you guys. I hope this was informative, informational to you guys. And yeah, that's what I've got for you today. Put in the comments what you'd like to see next. Thanks, guys. Take care. Until next time.